And welcome back to the Daily Report. Welcome to the marketplace. Tonight, we are wading the shipping and maritime waters. There has been a negative connotation on water, as a resource, considering the floods. However, now we're going to be concentrating on some of the positives. How exactly is this particular resource helping us earn, and how is it contributing to the gross domestic product of the country? In studio, we already have the Principal Secretary of Shipping and Maritime Affairs in Kenya, Honorable Geoffrey Kaituko. This is the second time you're coming to the studio, being interviewed by the same person, but you were in a different state department. I'm curious to know, what differences have you seen in these two state departments?
Thank you very much for having me back. It's always good to be back here at the home of untold stories.
Where we tell the stories.
Yes, last time I was here, I was actually in charge of the labor docket. And I think in the month of October, His Excellency the President decided to swap me with my colleague, P.S. Mwadime.
Right. So it was, in fact, I have also had Mwadime here.
Yes.
Speaking on the opposite, on this topic, before you were exchanged.
Yeah, that is what happens in these particular positions. Because at our level now, you should be able to comfortably run any state department without necessarily being too technical about it, because we are policy-making people. Yes. And
policies are running this country.
Yes,
is running the economy as well.
Absolutely.
What are some of the flagship projects that you would say you have been at the forefront of in this particular state department that you have moved to, shipping and maritime?
Yes, thank you very much. I've only been here for the last 7 months. And my immediate assignment upon assumption of office was to get Kenya re-elected to the IMO Council as a governing council, and we were able to successfully do that in the month of December.
Right.
Then again, in terms of what directly goes to the people, is that we were able to resolve the issue of the ease of doing business, because there were additional charges which were being imposed by shipping agents and some companies on consumers. And so last year, when the president went to the coastal city of Mombasa, he gave a directive that we should sit together and find a way of reducing those charges, because they were increasing the cost of doing business. And so in the month of October, we actually concluded that process. However, those colleagues of ours ran to court.
Right.
So the matter is currently in court. Otherwise, we are going to reduce the cost of doing business in this country, because, as you know, shipping costs drive prices of virtually everything within the economy. Yeah, so that's number two. Number three is that in our mandate as the State Department for Shipping and Maritime Affairs, we are supposed to place Kenyans on the global maritime labor market. And I'm happy to say that in the month of March, I took a trip to the Republic of South Korea. And as you know, South Korea is the largest shipping nation. They have like 1,600 ships plying different routes. And they are in need of seafarers. And so we are almost concluding an agreement with Koreans that will allow the Korean ship owners to recruit directly seafarers from our labor market here in Kenya. Other than that, we also have other companies that have come to see us from Europe, the UK, and we think we really have very good prospects of ensuring that Kenyans are able to join the global maritime labor market. But for us to achieve that, we as a State Department have been able to sign a number of recognition of mutual certificates of competence for seafarers between us and many other countries, because without that recognition, our seafarers will not be able to get any employment with foreign shipping companies. Yeah, so that is something that we've done. But then, as you know, shipping is one business where locals don't participate in this country.
Right.
It is run by foreign companies.
Right.
And we lose about 600 billion shillings every year. So we have come up with a business plan of ensuring that Kenya Shipping Line is revived.
Right.
So that Kenya is able to save on the shipping costs, on the money that we repatriate, the 600 billion that we would lose every year. Compare that to Ethiopia, that gets about 40 million US dollars per annum because they have their own shipping line that is active, yet it's a landlocked country.
Right, and it's very essential to have these, steps in place. 600 billion shillings is a very large amount of money.
Yes.
We did, we as TV47 do have, people on the ground to ask these questions. I assume the people who should be benefiting the most from this employment opportunities should be the Kenyans, right?
Absolutely.
And we are missing out on so much money. Let's touch base on ground and see what Kenyans have to say about this.
Unapangia nini watu wa Mombasa? Kwa sababu miaka inaisha, watu wanahangaika, watu hawana kazi.
Ni hapa bahari kama si wakazi wa pwani. Wakazi wa pwani hapa kusema kweli hatufunufaiki. Maana hata kuna vijana hapo wanataka kazi, wanafanya kazi. Kazi zenyewe zikitokea saini kujuana. Maana zamani kwa kunaambia watu wa pwani hawana documents. Watu sasa wamesoma hapo pwani. Na sasa ukienda hapo unakuka kazi kitokea inatangazwa kweli kazi imetokea. Viongozi wetu kazi imetokea. Ukifika hapo utatoa documents zako hapo na utatoa documents zako utangoja paka unasikia watu wamechukuliwa.
Tunaagiza serikali ya kwamba kidogo hiyo waangalie ili waweze kurekebisha. Poti ndio ambao sisi tumetegemea. Hatuna pali kwingine, poti imetegemewa na watu wa Mombasa. Kwa hivyo mkifanya ajira za kuenda namna hii, basi watu wa Mombasa watakuwa wanapata shida kupitia ajira. Sasa hakuna ajira.
Fadhali ile ulioahidi watu wa Mombasa kwamba bandari unairegesha Mombasa, shughuli zote za bandarini zinarudi Mombasa. Tungeomba zirudi ufanye vile ulivyotuambia.
Mbona huta bahari tuko nayo hapa lakini haitusaidii? Haitusaidii watu wa pwani, maana bahari iko hapa.
All right. The question that they are posing, I think if we could just sum it all up, is tunanufaika namna gani?
Yes, that is a very important question considering the fact that the economy of Mombasa is largely dependent on shipping.
Right.
More than tourism. And so for many years, especially in the 70s and in the 80s, we had a large population of seafarers that was coming from coastal counties and who were able to get jobs in other countries, and therefore these seafarers were able to change the fortunes of their families. Now most of them are currently aging,
right,
without us also getting opportunities for their children,
right,
and other younger people.
Right.
So it's a legitimate question they're asking, but this is what we are doing.
Right.
First and foremost, we are, as a government, committed to increasing access to maritime education in this country.
Right.
Because for us to be competitive globally, then we must produce world-class seafarers. And that is why we are making Bandari Maritime Academy a regional center of excellence for this particular region. Secondly, we are also strengthening the capacity of Kenya Maritime Authority as a regulator to ensure that they are able to uphold the standards that the IMO requires of seafarers. And so currently we have a team that was constituted by the Honorable Minister, that is Honorable Mvurya, from the ministry, so that we streamline issues of recruitment of seafarers. We have about 16 agencies that are registered by KMA. And then also, we require seafarers to register with KMA so that we have them in our database. Now, there are three kinds of jobs that seafarers can get. A seafarer is anybody working at sea. And for you to work at sea, you must be trained. And therefore, there's a basic sea safety training. It's called STCW. It's offered by Bandari and other institutions. But then you have the more specialized category of engineers, and this mainly are trained as cadets. And the universities here that train cadets are Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture, the Technical University of Mombasa. And those ones they require another thing called sea time training. They must go to sea for 9 months to 1 year, depending with the shipping line. And this is where we have a challenge as a country. Getting sea time for our engineers and cadets. The second one are the officers we call ratings. These are our support officers within a ship. And therefore, you find there are those opportunities. Then hospitality workers. People who are trained in hospitality, like from Utalii or any other institutions. Now, Kenya recently has become a very attractive destination for cruise ships. Like for the last few months, we've seen a number of cruise ships coming. And our cruise ship is like a whole hotel. It employs very many people. And also local traders can supply items that are needed. And so the coming of cruise ships is stimulating our coastal economy, especially around Mombasa. But we have a bigger potential. If number one, we can ensure that we have an operational shipping line. Number two, there's something called regional cabotage. That is where we allow ships, only ships that are ours, to trade within the region. And the whole concept has to do with the big shipping companies bringing cargo into the port of Mombasa, for example, and then from there, smaller vessels take them to nearby ports. And we have an opportunity because in Western Indian Ocean, where we are located, the port of Mombasa is now the most efficient port. And so this is something that we can tap into. And therefore, the issue of jobs for seafarers is very important. But there's some work to be done in terms of organizing that whole space. So that a Kenyan who is out of college is able to know what they should be able to do to secure an opportunity in a ship, whether it is a ship that is found here in Mombasa or in some other ports.
And maybe this may not be an end-all, be-all solution, but you did mention that we would tentatively have a shipping line at some point. I feel like this could solve our problems. What's the tentative timeline we should be working with?
We actually have a shipping line. We just have to revive it. It's called Kenya National Shipping Line. We are in the process of streamlining its operations, getting new management. And we are looking at the next 2 years.
The next 2 years?
2 years. There is a matter that is currently in court that has impeded the operationalization of some of the agreements that we've had with our partner, MSC. Once that matter is settled, then we should be able to proceed.
The courts are really hounding your State Department, PS. What exactly would you say is the main problem? Because it's clearly holding up two very important projects.
Well, I will not accuse the courts because the courts are here also to safeguard the rights of Kenyans. What the people I'll accuse are really Kenyans who take frivolous matters to court. Like, for example, the people who took that case to court have completely abandoned the matter. They are no longer interested in it. So what was the point of taking this matter to court if you didn't want it to be adjudicated in the first instance? Because the courts are there to resolve matters and to dispense with justice. So therefore, I think it is the individuals, the motivation behind the individuals who take matters to court that we should question rather than the courts themselves. Yes, so I believe that courts in the fullness of time are going to rule in our favor because we are here also to protect public interest, just like the courts. And if we are allowed to operate this shipping line, we have a huge potential of making revenues, of training our young people in our own vessels. We will be able to trade with other countries. In fact, we'll be able to operationalize the agreements that we are making with other countries under the African Continental Free Trade Area. You know, there cannot be an African Continental Free Trade Area without shipping. because Africa is an island. The other point I wanted to make is that we have to secure our waters at all times.
Right.
And as I'll say this as the chairman of the National Maritime Security Committee, that our commitment as government is to ensure that our EEZ, exclusive economic zone, and all the waters that are our territorial waters, both the coastal waters and the inland waters are safe and secure.
Right.
Because if our waters are not safe, there will be no ships docking here.
Right.
And this is why we've entered into an alliance with other countries through the Ministry of Defense. And also this is why we are working as a multi-agency team to ensure that at all times our waters are safe and we are also able to rescue vessels that either get lost or vessels that are that get an accident in our territorial waters. You know, our waters,
Right.
in terms of size, are equivalent to 33 counties.
All right.
That is how big our EEZ is. Most people don't understand this, but we have a very big continental shelf as a country.
All right.
And there are immense resources there. And it is our duty as government, one, to ensure that we as Kenyans are able to exploit the blue economy resources, the fish,
Right.
okay?
Right.
If there are any minerals, and there are in fact. And then also, we should be able to combat any criminal activities that take place in the waters. The unregulated, illegal fishing
Right.
that has been going on.
Right.
And we have adopted technologies, what we now call sea visioning technologies.
Right.
You know, for a long time things happened at sea, but we were not able to see. We were sea blind.
Right.
So with
There's
these
a
technologies,
lot of play with words there.
well, actually, there is a whole technology. If we go down to Mombasa,
Right.
if we visit our center that is operated by Kenya Coast Guard and by KMA, you'll see these things. You'll be able to see clearly
Right.
what is happening at sea.
Of course.
But then this brings us to the other issue, which is the enforcement.
Right.
Once we've seen the criminals
Right.
carrying out activities, what should we do?
Right.
Most of them smuggle wildlife. They smuggle drugs.
Right.
They smuggle human beings.
Right.
You know, a lot of things happen at sea. And so this is why we must secure our territorial waters at all
Right.
times.
Securing
Using the
and
Kenya Navy,
Right.
Kenya Coast Guard, Kenya Maritime Authority, and all the other agencies that are involved in that space.
Right. Bwana PS, as we talk about resources, let's just get a few numbers on the screen so that we can see what exactly is happening in the world of maritime and shipping. We do have a lot of resources. You said we have a potential 600 billion that we could be playing around with. But for now, Kenya's maritime sector, of course, accrues around 73 billion shillings per year, could be higher, hopefully. Fisheries contributes around 48.8 billion, and 90% of international trade is seaborne, 3 billion annually. And the State Department, of course, for Shipping and Maritime Affairs has 3 semi-autonomous government agencies. Of course, we've touched on that. These are the running arms of maritime and, of course, shipping. When the budget was being allocated, around 30% was slashed. What were your thoughts on this?
One of the things I want to say about that is, actually, the budget cuts did not affect only my State Department.
Right.
They were done across
board.
Okay. And therefore, for that reason, I cannot really say that we were singled out.
All right.
But be that as it may, I really want to say that the National Treasury has actually been very, very kind to us as a State Department.
Right.
Initially, many people within government, just like the rest of Kenyans, didn't understand what maritime and shipping is all about.
Right.
But when we got to explain to them the potential that is in this sector,
right,
they were able to appreciate, and for that reason, we got additional resources
right,
from the National Treasury.
right.
And it's all because, as you've mentioned, this sector has the potential of generating a lot of revenues for this country. Ghana, let me give you a small case. Ghana, which we'll say has a smaller coastline,
Right.
generates 10 times the revenues that we generate here in Mombasa.
Right.
So we have the opportunity of generating probably 20 times
Right,
what we are currently
but
getting.
one appears. I'm curious to know. Of course, 30% is a huge chunk. I understand that all state departments have been, in one way or another, affected. What exactly did this chunk debilitate?
The chunk that you're talking about was basically there were funds. Some of them were development funds.
Right.
That had not been used by the time the supplementary budget came around.
Right.
And so therefore the National Treasury, in their wisdom, decided that they needed to reallocate those resources to other priorities. But now I want to assure Kenyans that I've been here for the last 6 months.
Right.
And most of those projects are now on course.
Right.
And therefore, we'll be going back to the National Treasury to claim back our 30%.
Well, the Treasury should be looking at this right now.
But also, we are not only looking at the National Treasury. As I mentioned, we also want to generate more of our own revenues, especially the Kenya Maritime Authority, Bandari Maritime Academy, and also the Kenya National Shipping Line. All these have the potential of being self-sustaining with own revenues.
All right.
Without
That
being dependent on the national government.
All right, let's just look at these numbers, once again. I'm looking at, the difference that 600 billion Kenyan shillings could make in comparison to 73 billion, of course, 48.8 billion. And of course, when it comes to international trade, which is seaborne, 3 billion comes, of course, to this particular subsector. This State Department is very important to two particular sectors. It touches on blue economy, which adds to the gross domestic product by about 2.5%. And of course, Kenya's transport sector accounting for 8.3% of the total gross domestic product. If you add these numbers, 73, 48, that's around 50. That's around 150 billion. Give or take, and that's the upper limit. If I roughly add all of this, in comparison to 600 billion shillings, you have had the State Department for around 6 months now. Where do you see the State Department going in the next, say, 3 years?
Next 2 years. This will be the most attractive State Department.
Right, and that's a promise you're making.
Yes. Simply because of the potential it has. We in Kenya, we need to disabuse ourselves of this old thinking of being land-centric, of being focused on land, seeing only the benefits that land can give us. We also need to look at the sea, at the ocean, at the lakes. We are not only endowed with coastal waters where we can do coastal shipping, that is coastal marine transport, but we also have inland waters. We have Lake Turkana, that can connect Marsabit, Turkana, and Ethiopia. We have Lake Victoria, which is actually a regional lake. There is so much that can happen there. People will tell you in the old days what was happening between the 3 East African countries in terms of shipping. And so the thing about this State Department and blue economy is that we need to invest in there. We should not expect to reap big when we are investing very little. Invest in there, buy our own vessels, train as many Kenyans as possible in this sector, and then we'll be able to tap into the potential that we are talking about.
All right. And I'm seeing, of course, you have been talking about safety, which is very crucial, especially when it comes to the coastline. You have highlighted that some criminal activities may take place if we don't take care of our coastline. There is an information sharing platform that you did launch. Tell us a little more about that.
Yes, we have a number of platforms which people can use to reach us. And I think one of them is the one that KMA launched. Kenya Coast Guard also launched another one. And then we have general ones that are run by security agencies. Because we are all working in collaboration. And so the thing about those particular platforms is that they are only as useful as their use. If people are not able to use them, then we'll not be able to get the information that is needed for us to act. So I want to encourage Kenyans to use those platforms, especially the ones that are run by KMA and Kenya Coast Guard.
All right. Of course, there's a steering committee member and strategic partner. It's a project by the EU called Crimario 2 from the European Union, and the critical maritime routes to the Indo-Pacific region. This particular project, I'm curious to know, of course, the European Union is involved with Kenya in very many aspects. How many Kenyans are going to be benefiting from this project?
This project called the Crimario 2 is a security-related project. And I remember in the month of March, we were in Sri Lanka with other leaders from about 40 countries and different agencies. Most of them are people from the Navy and the Coast Guard. The thing about this project is that it is the one which is giving us the equipment that I talked about for sea visioning and also for information sharing. Because, as I've mentioned, the maritime security is a multi-agency and a multinational space. It's a domain that requires you to work with other nations. For example, there was a vessel that there's resurgence of piracy off the coast of Somalia after the recent attacks in the Red Sea. There are a number of vessels that have been attacked by pirates. There was one Sri Lankan vessel that was attacked, and it took the Seychelles Navy to intervene for that vessel to be released. So there are a number of, so when you work together, it means that our Navy can help out a vessel from another country. Of course. Or if it is a Kenyan vessel that has found itself in problems, then we'll be able to, it will be assisted by the Navy of that other country. So this is a project that brings all of us together. We have the technology, the information sharing, and in real time we are able to respond. You know, the thing about disasters and responding, what is important is the time it takes, what you call the turnaround time. Of course. If you can respond very quickly, you'll be able to save lives and to save property. Last month, there was a Korean vessel that disappeared off our waters. We tracked it within 3 hours, and we found it was already in the Seychelles waters. And we got in touch with our counterparts there. And they were able to send us a team that was able to secure that vessel before it got burned down. So, yeah, this is the kind of work that we do at sea. And it requires that we collaborate with other nations and other militaries. Of course. Yes. Bwana PS, of course, the Red Sea is currently, it has been compromised. Yes. And a lot of Kenyans may not know this, but this in turn does compromise, you know, importation of goods, exportation of goods, and of course, trade is debilitated in this particular aspect. Maybe if you could just explain to Kenyans how exactly, or what position are we in? Can we protect our goods? What is the situation? Yes, the situation currently is under control in our waters. We haven't gotten any attacks here. What is happening is that because of the Red Sea attacks, most of the vessels are using our route, which is the longer route, the route that was being used in the 1860s, before the construction of the Suez Canal. The countries that have actually felt direct impact are, for example, Egypt, who have lost over 30% of their revenues because there are very few vessels that can now use that channel. Now we have many vessels coming down the east coast of Africa. With that, there is increased cost, freight costs, insurance. Initially, when this attack started, the insurance companies were like, oh no, this is something that was not anticipated. But now the insurance companies are saying, no, you have to pay more premiums. And so that increases also the cost of shipping. And then also refueling. You know, when vessels are moving around, you'll want to fuel less so that you carry more cargo. But now, taking the long route, it means you have to fuel along the way. We Kenyans have an opportunity of doing what is called bunkering. That is having big ships here that can be, that carry fuel, so that these other ships that take this route can come So, but we haven't done that, and that's an opportunity that we have.
Right.
Now, most ships actually go down to Mauritius. That is where they refuel, and then they continue with their journeys.
Right.
So there is increased time, increased costs. You know, a lot of things have been affected, but there are also opportunities
Right.
that we need to tap into as a region.
Right.
Yes.
This bunkering,
Yeah.
I'm once again very much curious. This is something that a lot of Kenyans could be benefiting from. Are there efforts, you know, by the State Department to this effect?
Yes, we do have. We have done bunkering before, but there are two impediments to
Right.
bunkering. Number one is that in our laws, there is a tax relief that is given to those foreign vessels that do bunkering, and also the ones that come down to the cost for fueling. But then the claiming process is longer.
Right.
So it discourages people. Number two is the problem we have in this country of corruption. We have real fear that any fuel that we store for bunkering can find its way into our local markets.
Right.
Instead of it being used for ships solely, you'll find that the same fuel is brought back here by unscrupulous individuals.
That could be another business opportunity for another individual.
So we need to seal this loophole.
Right.
And we need to ensure that tax incentive that I talked about
Right.
is available readily to those who are supposed to access it. And number two, that fuel for bunkering is only used by ships.
Right.
And it shouldn't be able to come back to the black
Mainland.
market.
Right.
Yes.
Well, we are solving a lot of problems tonight. I feel like we're being very productive. Now, let's talk about employment, especially when it comes to seafarers. The Day of the Seafarer is coming 25th of June this particular year. Of course, a lot of Kenyans are curious to know what exactly they should be looking out for, what they should be looking forward to, and what exactly is going to be done on that particular day. And the international shipping lines, of course, have been very instrumental. We're seeing that there are 5,000, annual job openings for this particular sector. Could this be something that could solve unemployment in the country? Where is the future for us?
Yes, that's an important question. Responding to the first part of it, is that we are making preparations to celebrate the International Day of the Seafarers. And I think we are bringing together all the stakeholders. And therefore, this year, we should be able to do a celebration unlike any other.
Right.
But of course, most of these activities are concentrated in and around Mombasa.
Of course.
And for those who are there. In terms of job opportunities that are available, potentially, if we train enough Kenyans, we can have up to 40,000
Right.
to 50,000 jobs
Right.
available every year, because the global maritime labor market is experiencing serious shortages of seafarers. Let's take the case of Korea, for example. Koreans, for a long time, have depended on Philippines, Indonesia, and Myanmar. Those are the three countries. This year, when I was there, when I was meeting the Vice Minister for Oceans and Fisheries, together with the ship owners, because we met about 10 shipping companies, they told us that their shortage alone for this year is about 5,000.
All right.
And this shortage, they are unable to get these seafarers from their traditional markets of that are found in East Asia.
Of course.
And so therefore, they are looking at to a fourth country. And in this case, they are attracted by Kenya, because so far, the Kenyans who have been recruited by Korean shipping companies have done exceedingly well.
All right.
Our brand is very good. And then the fact that the Korean businesses have done well in the global market, their foreign maritime market is the one that needs these Kenyans. And therefore, our fluency in English gives us an advantage.
All right.
So how are we preparing for this? One is we are doing an MOU with Korea. Our minister will be accompanying the president for the Korean summit in June, and they will sign this. Everything it has been prepared together with our Korean counterparts. Once that is done, the Korean companies will come here and do recruitment.
Right.
But number two, Koreans have asked us to identify a manning company. A manning company in labor language is a manpower company. It's a company that helps them in recruitment. We have Kenya National Shipping Line as one that can be used. But also we have 16 recruitment agencies that are registered by Kenya Maritime Authority, which will help us in terms of mobilizing the youth who need to be recruited for different cadres. And we have shared that data with their officials. And so therefore we think that we are prepared to onboard Kenyans on the global maritime market. Other than Korea, we have the UK. There are many UK companies. We have other European companies that are interested in our brand. But we need to increase the number of engineers we are training. We may get hospitality workers. We may get the ratings. But my worry as the PS in charge is that we do not have enough engineers. We are now considering also having a conversion course for these other engineers that train on land. We now want to introduce a course that can make them work at sea, convert their skills easily so that they're able to work on vessels as engineers. So this is something that we are working on with Bandari Maritime Academy. We have a huge opportunity as a country. We are an attractive brand, but we also must be able to produce a pipeline of skilled persons to go into the global maritime market. Yes.
I believe this conversion course is going to be very instrumental in ensuring a lot of the engineers who aren't employed could get employment from clearly a very lucrative job market that people have not tapped into. Now, you coming from the State Department of Labor do realize that safety for a lot of these employees is very essential. We're talking 40,000 to 50,000 people a year, tentatively. How exactly are we going to be protecting these workers?
That's an important question because Kenya has ratified what is called the Maritime Labor Convention of 2006. And that particular convention contains therein provisions that help us in safeguarding the welfare and the well-being of seafarers, both in our vessels and in foreign vessels. This is a heavily regulated market. Unlike the other market that I dealt with in labor, this one is regulated heavily. And so there's no ship that can move to any port without being inspected at the port where it started its journey and at the port of destination. So every port where they stop, they are checked on. And the authorities are in constant communication. So that way we are able to safeguard the welfare of the seafarers. And then secondly, as a country, we are producing what is called as SID, the Seafarers Identification Document, which our seafarers will carry, and therefore they will not need visas wherever they'll go. Yeah, because that alone is an internationally recognized identification document available to seafarers across the world. And then thirdly, as I've mentioned, we are doing MOUs with other countries. One of the countries that I didn't mention earlier, which I'm happy to say we are doing an MOU with, is called Marshall Islands, because there are many ships that are registered under Marshall Islands. And so this is a regulated market. And the seafarers are some of the most protected workers.
So any Kenyan globally who is watching this and thinking about this as a job opportunity should be assured that their safety and any concern would be addressed.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
And as we start to conclude this particular conversation, it is almost 10:30 p.m. actually. We've had a very lovely conversation. As we start to conclude this particular conversation, where do you see the future of this particular State Department under your guidance, of course? Where are we going to be seeing ourselves in the next 2 years? What numbers in terms of revenue will we be hitting?
Yeah, well, I believe that we will make major strides in the next 2 years. Currently, as I've said, we are working with other nations that are maritime superpowers. My vision as the PS is that Kenya can be a regional maritime superpower.
All right.
Here in Western Indian Ocean. And that means we'll have our own vessels. We'll get as many skilled seafarers trained in this country. And so therefore I see a very bright future ahead of us. But we must invest.
In the first place.
In the first place.
Would you like to direct that to the Treasury?
Well, yes, there is the National Treasury, of course. But we as a country must accept that shipping, blue economy, and maritime in general is the future.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, when I joined here, I was told this is the new frontier. And I come from one of the frontier counties in Kenya.
All right.
So I tell people, let us conquer the frontier. We cannot continue saying about a new frontier.
Right.
We must get
Always
into that
in
frontier.
Potential phase.
We have to move into tapping that potential for the benefit of this country.
Right, and as we turn that into kinetic, of course it is important to note that some of the concerns that we have addressed tonight will be helping a lot of Kenyans gain, employment and increased revenue in the country. Maybe this is a State Department that you could be involved in. This is a sector that you could be benefiting from. This conversation has been absolutely lovely. Thank you so much, PS, for joining us tonight, and welcome once again to TV47. But for now, it's good night from us here in studio. My name is Hibak Said. Have yourselves a very lovely Wednesday and Thursday.